My sister's jealousy turned deadly, how I survived her attempt to steal our grandparents' inheritance. Lily had known from a young age that her parents loved her younger sister Emma more. It wasn't something they ever said out loud, but it didn't need to be said. The signs were everywhere, written in the little moments that added up over the years. When Lily was 7 and proudly came home with a drawing she'd worked on for hours, her parents had smiled politely before turning their attention to Emma's school play audition. "Isn't she talented?" her mother had said, beaming as Emma recited her lines. No one had mentioned Lily's drawing again, though she had left it on the fridge for weeks, hoping someone would notice. As the years passed, it became more obvious. Emma was the star, good at sports, popular at school, and always the one receiving praise. On her birthdays, their parents would throw extravagant parties, inviting the whole neighborhood, while Lily's birthdays were smaller, quieter affairs with fewer guests and less excitement. "Emma's so social," their mother would say, as if that explained everything. Lily tried not to let it get to her. She threw herself into her studies and hobbies, learning to find joy in things that didn't need anyone else's validation. She spent hours reading, drawing, and later, as a teenager, she found comfort in visiting her grandparents. Her grandparents were different. They didn't care that Lily wasn't the loud, shining star Emma was. They enjoyed her company, whether she was sitting quietly with them by the fireplace or helping her grandmother bake cookies. Her grandfather would tell her stories about the old days, about the family's history, and they listened to her, really listened. Still, even in their quiet home, Lily's place in the family was clear. At family gatherings, her parents would beam with pride as Emma told stories about her latest cheerleading competition or the college acceptance letters that rolled in. Lily's achievements, her academic scholarships, her art being displayed at local galleries, were met with polite applause, never the outright pride that her parents showered on Emma. Even when Lily was named valedictorian of her high school, her parents' response had been lukewarm. "It's wonderful, dear," her father had said, before turning to Emma, who was excitedly planning her post-graduation trip to Europe with friends. "You'll have so much fun, Emma. What a great experience that will be." It was always Emma. Emma, who could do no wrong. Emma, who was the center of their world. Lily learned to hide her hurt. She never confronted her parents about it. What would be the point? They didn't seem to notice, and if they did, they certainly didn't care enough to change. But her grandparents noticed. Every time Lily would visit, her grandmother would smile warmly, ask her about her art or her studies, and tell her how proud they were of her. That's why, when their grandparents passed away, Lily was devastated. They had been the only ones who truly saw her, who made her feel like she wasn't just invisible in her own family. The reading of the will came a few weeks after the funeral. Lily and Emma were called to their lawyer's office, their parents seated beside them. Emma seemed relaxed, as if the whole thing was a mere formality. After all, she had always been the favorite, not just of their parents but of everyone, or so she thought. The lawyer cleared his throat and began to read the will. As per the wishes of Mr. and Mrs. Shaw, their estate, including their home, savings, and all family heirlooms, will be passed down to their granddaughters. Emma smirked. She didn't even try to hide her confidence. She always got what she wanted. Lily sat quietly, resigned. She didn't expect much, maybe a small token, something to remember her grandparents by. But then, the lawyer said something that made the room go still. The entirety of the estate will go to their eldest granddaughter, Lily. Lily's heart skipped a beat. She must have heard wrong. What? Emma's voice was sharp, full of disbelief. That can't be right. They meant to split it evenly, I'm sure. Their mother's face turned pale. "This must be a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "Why would they leave everything to Lily? It doesn't make sense." But the lawyer confirmed it. There was no mistake. Their grandparents had left everything to Lily, every last bit of their estate, including the lake house where they had spent so many happy summers. Lily couldn't believe it. She hadn't asked for this. She hadn't expected this. But as she sat there, the realization washed over her. Her grandparents had seen what her parents refused to see, that she had always been the one left in the shadows, the one overlooked and underappreciated. They knew, she whispered. Emma was furious. "This isn't fair. I was the one who always visited them. I helped them with things I deserved." But Lily cut her off, standing up slowly. "You deserved everything? Is that what you think, Emma?" Her voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, a strength she hadn't realized she had. "You've always been the favorite. You always got what you wanted. But Grandma and Grandpa, they saw me. They saw who I am, and they knew I deserved more than being pushed aside." Their father tried to interject, "We'll contest this. It's clearly not what they intended. Lily shook her head, her resolve growing. No. I won't let you do that. This was their choice, and I'm going to honor it. For the first time in her life, Lily wasn't backing down. She had spent years being invisible, being the afterthought. But not anymore. As she left the lawyer's office, her parents and Emma still protesting behind her, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Not just in what her grandparents had left her, but in the fact that they had seen her for who she truly was, even when no one else had. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all. Lily walked out of the lawyer's office, her heart pounding in her chest, her mind spinning with the events that had just unfolded. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm glow over the street outside. She stood there for a moment, breathing in the evening air, letting the weight of everything sink in. Behind her, she could still hear her family inside. Her parents were arguing with the lawyer, trying to find loopholes or ways to contest the will. Emma was fuming, her voice sharp and accusatory. But for the first time in her life, Lily didn't feel the need to stay and listen, to seek approval or validation. She didn't care about their reactions anymore. Her grandparents had seen her, loved her, and left her a legacy that was far more than material. She pulled out the letter again, the one her grandparents had left her. Their handwriting was shaky but full of warmth and love. As she read it once more, her eyes filled with tears, not from sadness but from the overwhelming sense of belonging she had always longed for. "My dearest Lily," the letter began, "we know how hard it's been for you, growing up in a family that didn't always see you the way we did. You have always been our quiet strength, the one who cared without needing recognition. You may have been overlooked by others, but never by us. We leave everything to you because we know you will cherish it, not just for what it is, but for the memories and love it holds. You have always had a piece of our hearts, Lily, and now, you have everything we worked so hard for. Take care of the home, the lake, and most importantly, take care of yourself. You deserve every bit of this. Love. Grandma and Grandpa." Lily wiped away a tear, folding the letter carefully and tucking it back into her bag. She had been invisible for so long, and now she wasn't. As she made her way to her car, her phone buzzed with a message. It was from Emma. "This isn't over." Lily stared at the message for a moment, then shut off her phone. She didn't need to engage in another fight over what was rightfully hers. Emma would never understand. Their parents might never understand either, and that was something she had to accept. But Lily understood. Her grandparents had given her the strength to step out of the shadows and claim her own place in the world. They had given her a way forward, a future that was hers to shape, without constantly comparing herself to Emma or seeking approval from people who could never truly appreciate her. Lily drove home, feeling lighter than she had in years. She could already imagine the days she would spend at the lake house, maybe even turning it into a quiet retreat for herself, a place where she could finally breathe, where she could create, where she could live without the weight of always being second best. And in the quiet moments, when the world slowed down, she would remember her grandparents, the ones who had always known her worth. She had spent years in their shadows, but now, their love and their legacy had brought her into the light. As the stars began to dot the sky, Lily smiled to herself, knowing that from now on, she was no longer the forgotten daughter. She was the one who had been chosen, the one who had been seen all along. The inheritance had been a shock. Emma, who had always been the one receiving praise and attention, was furious. Their parents were stunned, insisting there had to be a mistake. But Lily stood firm, knowing her grandparents' decision wasn't about wealth but about finally acknowledging the person she was, the one who had always been overlooked. Weeks passed, and the tension between Lily and her family grew. Emma stopped speaking to her altogether. Their parents were distant, barely masking their disappointment. Emma's angry texts had escalated, going from passive-aggressive jabs to outright threats. Lily didn't want to believe her sister would act on those threats. Despite everything, they were still family. But deep down, something didn't feel right. There was a darkness in Emma's eyes the last time they had spoken, something Lily had never seen before. Then, one night, Lily returned to the lake house to find something strange. The front door, which she always locked, was slightly ajar. A chill ran down her spine as she stepped inside. The air felt different, thick with unease. She turned on the lights, her eyes scanning the room. Everything seemed normal, until she reached the kitchen. There, on the floor, lay a broken vase, her grandmother's favorite. Lily's heart raced as she crouched down, inspecting the shards. Was it an accident, or had someone been inside? Her phone buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from Emma. "I hope you're enjoying the lake house, Lily. Won't be yours for long." Lily's fingers trembled as she read the words. She had brushed off Emma's earlier anger, thinking it was just her sister lashing out. But now, the weight of her words felt more dangerous. Lily decided to stay the night at the lake house anyway, hoping that maybe she was overthinking everything. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Around midnight, Lily awoke to a faint noise, barely audible, but enough to stir her from sleep. Her heart pounded as she listened closely. There it was again, a creak of floorboards, as if someone was moving through the house. She grabbed her phone, her hands shaking as she quietly dialed 911. As she moved toward the bedroom door, it swung open, and there stood Emma, her face contorted with rage, eyes wild. In her hand was a kitchen knife, gleaming in the moonlight. "Emma," Lily gasped, backing away. "What are you doing?" Emma stepped forward, her voice a low growl. "You think you can just take everything from me? Everything that should have been mine?" "Grandma and Grandpa made their choice," Lily stammered, trying to stay calm, her mind racing for a way out. "This isn't what they would have wanted." "They were wrong," Emma snarled. "They didn't know how much I needed this. You don't need it, you never did. You're just there. You always have been." Lily's breath caught in her throat as Emma raised the knife, her hand trembling. "But I can fix this. I can make things right." Lily felt the wall behind her, there was nowhere left to go. She could see the madness in her sister's eyes, the desperation. Emma wasn't thinking straight, she was driven by jealousy and greed. Just as Emma lunged forward, Lily reacted on instinct, throwing a nearby lamp at her sister. The impact knocked Emma off balance, and the knife clattered to the ground. Lily seized the moment, running past her sister and into the living room. The sound of sirens filled the night air, backup was coming. Emma, realizing she was out of time, scrambled to her feet and bolted out the back door, disappearing into the woods behind the house. The police arrived moments later, combing the area for Emma, but she was nowhere to be found. Lily, shaken and exhausted, gave them a full account of what had happened. Her hands still trembled as she replayed the nightmarish scene over and over in her mind. A restraining order was filed, and Emma became a fugitive, her rage and desperation driving her further into isolation. Their parents, horrified at the turn of events, begged Lily to drop the charges, hoping Emma would turn herself in. But Lily knew better. Emma's hatred had turned into something darker, something far more dangerous than anyone could have predicted. And while the scars from that night would heal, the bond between the sisters was broken beyond repair. Months passed, and Lily tried to move on with her life. She kept the lake house, finding solace in the peace and quiet it offered. But she could never quite shake the feeling of being watched, of knowing that somewhere out there, Emma was still holding on to her anger, still convinced that Lily had stolen her future. Every time Lily glanced at her phone, she half expected to see another message from Emma, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. But for now, at least, Lily was safe, and she knew she would never let herself be unseen again. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed these Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.